Howdy y'all, welcome to Nerd Studio. We're out at the range today. Want to talk a little bit about accuracy. You know, a couple of videos ago I had one of my longest subscribers, Brian Chase, comment that he'd been with me from the beginning and had been learning along with me, and I thought, you know, I'm a couple of years into this. I think I have an opinion on accuracy. Stay tuned. Yeehaw! In case you're just stumbling across this video or you haven't been following the channel that long, let me give a quick recap of what Nerd Gone South is and why I do it. So, I always say I'm not a firearms expert. I was around guns as a kid and I was in the military for a while. But when I got out, I didn't really own any firearms till about my mid-40s, where I had sort of a firearms awakening. And went out and bought my first pistol and took it to the range, and it just reminded me how much fun this is. And like most of you, I turned to YouTube to fill my knowledge gaps. It's a great place to go get information. But, as I watch the channels that were out there, and most of them out there today, there's a lot of folks that are, their point of view is as a firearms expert. You get a lot of former, Navy SEALs and Army Rangers and guys that have, deep firearms knowledge, and that's terrific. I'm not knocking that. It's great. I've certainly learned a lot from it. But there wasn't much content out there for the novice or the beginner or even the intermediate, and certainly not for anyone sort of middle-aged, overweight with physical limitations or just a common dude. Not a lot of content out there. So as I started into it, I went, man, I could just get a video camera pointed at me and do a channel where people watched as I learned, and maybe they were learning along with me. And that's certainly the case for Brian Chase. He said he's been following along from the beginning and learning his way around firearms along with me, and I think that's pretty cool. So that's the point of view I approach these videos from, and the point of view that I'm going to approach the subject of accuracy. First of all, what is accuracy? And I know that can kind of sound like a stupid question, but it really does depend on who you ask. If you talk to a bullseye shooter, accuracy, they're interested in eating a 10 ring out of a target. Accuracy has certain nuances to it. If you talk to somebody that's a competition shooter, like, does 3-gun, that kind of thing, accuracy to them has some different nuances. If you talk to somebody who's interested in self-defense, which is really my perspective, accuracy has a bit of a different definition. Now, yes, at the base, it is all, putting the rounds on target in the place that you're aiming, and I get all that. But the skills and the changes that you need to make in how you operate the gun can vary depending on your point of view or your desired outcome. So it makes a big difference. Accuracy, of course, has a basic definition. Does the bullet go where I'm aiming? But your skill level obviously has a huge impact on your accuracy. Now, if you watch the channel, or if you go back and watch a really early video and then a much later video, hopefully what you see is a progression of my skill level, and along the way my accuracy increase. One of the things I want to point out, though, in your skill level, things change over time as your experience with a firearm grows, and I think this is different just having a lot of friends and stuff out to the range. The implementation that people use at different skill levels are different from shooter to shooter. So you have to kind of feel your way along. You have to use the basic guidance, and then as your skill level and your experience increases, you may have to adjust along the way. It can be a little bit difficult sometimes to follow along with the standard training and advice that you find out there. If you're getting along in years, or you're like me and you have physical limitations, I've broken all my fingers at one point or another, do all kinds of crazy stuff. I have some small hands. I'm obviously overweight. I got some blown discs in my back. My knees are shot. My hair hurts and my teeth itch, right? We all look different. We have different sized hands and different postures and different physical limitations. And so sometimes it can be hard to follow the straight on advice, particularly when it's coming from somebody who is, 25 and still running and jumping and having fun. So that should not stop you, though, from being accurate with a firearm. You should still be able to use a gun and shoot it accurately. You may have to adjust, though, some of the standard advice out there. I know I have. That is, the great thing about guns. They are the great equalizer. They allow somebody who is on in years or has limitations to defend themselves. And so you shouldn't feel that you can't be accurate with a firearm just because you have a physical limitation. Sight alignment and sight picture, of course, have a basic definition, and we'll put a little diagram up here, some 3-dot sights, but basically you align the front and the back sights together, put the front sight on the target. That gives you a sight picture. You want to focus on your front sight, and lots of varying pieces of advice in there. But not talked about largely are how a shooter and the equipment that they're using can affect that sight alignment and sight picture. So for instance, you take me and my father-in-law Bob. If you watch the channel, you'll see him occasionally on here. He holds at 6 o'clock. It's how he was trained. He's an old revolver shooter, and that works for him. He has a different prescription set of lenses than I do, and I actually cover the target. And some of this really depends on your distance from the target as well, the gun that you're using, the sights that are on the gun. So there's lots of different factors that can affect how you align your sights. So yeah, you want to use that basic advice from a starting position and go from there. But keep in mind that you may have to adjust, again, for you and for the gun that you carry and for your anatomy and all those good things. The gun that you choose, of course, has a big impact on your accuracy. I've seen one person pick up a gun, be very accurate with it, another person of equal skill come by, pick up the same gun and can't shoot it worth a darn. A lot of that has to do with the type of modifications that have been done to the gun. Some people prefer different kinds of sights, the gripping surface, how that particular gun sends the recoil back into the shooter, their style of shooting, what caliber they're used to. There's a lot of permutations in that. So again, choosing the gun that's right for you, that you shoot most accurately, is really important, but it may not be the same thing that someone else shoots accurately. So be prepared for that. Trigger pull, of course, is another element that has a basic definition. If you ask, most people will tell you the general advice: you want the trigger to be right in the middle of that first pad on your finger. You want to pull straight back, you want to squeeze, you want to follow through. You'll hear things like, you want the gun going off to be a surprise. Probably all good advice, but because of people's anatomy or different skill levels or different needs, they may have to modify that some. Take Hickok 45. He's got one of the largest YouTube channels out there. If you don't know who he is, go look him up. He's got mammoth hands, and he's like 12 feet tall and throws boulders and stuff. So I think he's got to hook the gun like that, because it's just the only way he can comfortably do it. And so over time, he has learned to be accurate, and he is very accurate with the completely inappropriate trigger pull. I mean, you have to be willing to adjust that stuff so that it works for you. In the end, if you can't seem to keep from pulling left if you're a right-hander or right if you're a left-hander, which is pretty common with the troublesome trigger pull, probably what's happening is you're not able to pull straight back with that gun. And if you can't correct that, keep in mind, most sights on guns are adjustable. And as long as you will be consistent with the trigger pull, you can knock that sight left or right a little bit to correct for the way that you're shooting. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're going to consistently pull the trigger the same. If you find over time that you start pulling the other direction, chances are you've adjusted to a more proper trigger pull, and you just make the sight adjustment. So that's another option. Don't get discouraged. I used to get a lot of requests to put up paper targets and show the group size that I was getting with handguns, and it just never made sense to me. There's so many variations out there that it just didn't seem like meaningful data. One of those variations that has a lot to do with accuracy is the kind of ammunition that you're using. Literally, I can take the same ammunition, put it in 2 different guns, and it will shoot differently depending on the gun that I'm shooting it out of. And you can actually, we've seen this here at the studio. We can bring out 2 guns of the same model, use the same ammunition, and they will shoot them differently. So small variations in the manufacturing process from lot to lot of the gun and lot to lot of the ammo can affect, at least in small degrees, how accurate you are. So if you're looking at bullseye shooting, and most people that do that kind of shooting, you'll find that they're using very specific well-made target ammo, or they're loading the stuff themselves so they know exactly how many, exactly what grain of bullet and how many grains of powder and all that good stuff, and how it interacts with their particular gun. So don't expect me to put up a bunch of paper targets and shoot like that. It's not something I really do anyway. I will say this, though, for your carry ammunition, I would encourage you to run some of that through the gun that you're going to carry and understand what kind of accuracy you get out of that ammunition in your carry gun. and choose the ammunition and of course the carry gun that is most accurate for you, at least from a self-defense standpoint. And I'd encourage you also occasionally to cycle that ammunition out, take it out to the range, shoot through it, buy a new lot of a new box of the same ammunition, load it up and try it again. Over time, the springs and stuff in your gun, as you shoot more rounds through it, are going to change, and the gun is going to change slightly over time. So you want to make sure that the carry ammo that you've got is going to perform the way you expect it to. Last but not least, the gun. People will ask me all the time, hey, have you tried the H&K this, or the M&P that, or the Glock this, and is it accurate? And really, it's a meaningless question. Yes, you must choose the gun that is right for you. You've got to go out and find one that you shoot well with the equipment on it that works for you. That is very important, no doubt. But when it comes down to the gun itself, if you lock those guns down in a vise at any self-defense range or at any range that gun is designed to shoot at, you lock it down hard in a vise and find a way to pull the trigger so that it doesn't bobble the gun at all, it's probably going to put rounds in the same hole or nearly the same hole every time. Being accurate is more about all of the sum of all of the things we've talked about in this video and more, and less about the idea of the firearm itself. So yes, pick one that's right for you, put the equipment that on it that works for you, but when it comes down to asking, is that gun accurate? My answer is, yep, they all are. With all that said, here's a rare look at me shooting a paper target. Accuracy is something I'm trying to get better at all the time. I think anyone that takes shooting seriously is probably doing the same, and since you're watching this video, I'm going to guess that accuracy is something you're concerned about as well. If I had some summary advice to give you, buy the gun that works for you, put the equipment on it that works for you. You want to, get those core skills down, listen to that core advice, that's all good stuff, but don't be afraid to make adjustments as necessary for your skill level and your anatomy. Not all shooters look alike, but I think all shooters have the potential to be accurate, at least from a self-defense perspective. There you go, my thoughts. All right, folks, always remember anyone can shoot accurately, and have fun. We'll see you next time.
Yeehaw!